Hello, my name is Opal Singleton. I am the president and CEO of an organization called Million Kids, millionkids.org. We've been in business about 15 years. We're out of Southern California, but we work all across the nation and have been involved in combating sex trafficking and online exploitation for many, many years. We're probably a little bit unique in the business in that we're not necessarily a victim service provider, although we certainly work with many victim service providers. We are post-certified law enforcement trainer, and we've trained about 750,000 people. We're not into melodrama, but I am going to warn you that if you're going to continue this particular podcast, it's going to get really heavy. If you have a background, if you're a survivor, or if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, or maybe you're just having a down day, this might not be the best podcast for you. But I want to tell it like it is, and that's what we are known for doing. We've been doing this about 15 years. We've trained about 750,000 people. And whenever I train on human trafficking, it is always a challenge. I think human trafficking just might be the most heinous crime in the world because it uses sex as a way of punishing people, sex as a weapon, sex that would normally be something that would be positive and something that would build a relationship. In sex trafficking, it is used as a weapon, and that makes it heinous. And not only that, it's used by gangs in a big, big way. Now, this isn't new. This has been going on for as long as I've worked in it. The case I'm going to talk about today is really an important case. And I'm going to tell you, I may be a little bit wandering around a little bit in the content because I have done a massive amount of research. Whenever we do a podcast like this, or we do an organized presentation to an organization, we want to make sure we have the facts. And so we will read all the various news releases that we can on it, giving preference to those that are being released by a law enforcement agency so that we know that we're not embellishing in any way. So this particular case, this is August 2025 in Southern California. The headline is called Operation Broken Blade. So what does that mean? Blade is a term that you can use for a lot of things, obviously, but in the term of sex trafficking, it talks about the places where commercial sex, where prostitution is often conducted. In California, because of a change of laws that we've had out here, we have several notorious blades, and one of them is called Figueroa Corridor. Now, I remember my first case way back in 2011. It involved a girl from Riverside, California, where I'm from, was recruited out of a high school by a Crips gang member, a girl. And we now know that about 60% of cases, the girl is recruited by another girl. And she was taken over to the Figueroa Corridor area. And so Figueroa Corridor has been notorious for prostitution and selling sex for a very long time. Now, how can this be? You say to yourself, we're a mature society. Hopefully, we're a smart society, although there are days I question that in California. And you say to yourself, who is out there walking up and down the street, barely clothed? And I don't mean that in a judgmental way, by the way. These women are forced into that. And you say to yourself, well, if a woman wants to sell her own body, shouldn't she be able to do that? I get that line all the time. Well, the answer is, if you're an adult and you're doing it of your own free will, I suppose you can. But that isn't what's taking place on a blade. On a blade, they are historically sex trafficking cases. These are women who got caught in the life somehow, some way, never intending to, and the lives they live are absolutely horrific. And how this can have gone on for year in, year out in a sophisticated state like California is really one of the questions that nobody is willing to answer. If you ask officials, they say, well, you know, you're exaggerating it, or the mayor of that town is a liar. That was one of the quotes I got from an assemblyman, or maybe a congressman out of Sacramento. Anyway, so what is going on about this case is that it is a gang out of LA that works historically just Figueroa Corridor. Now I'm going to get that gang, by the way, let me give you just a little bit of background on that. It's Hoover Gang is what it's called, and this one is called 112 Set. And so I'm saying to myself, okay, well, who are these people? And I start to do the research on who 112 Set of Hoover is. And it's interesting, interesting article online. They won't let me print it. They won't let me copy it. But I photographed it, so I'm going to read it to you. The 112 Hoover Criminals Gang, or the 11 Deuce Hoover Criminals Gang, is also known as the Laylos and are formerly known as the Hoover Crips Gang. They're an African-American street gang located on the west side of LA. The 112 Hoover criminal gangs are a subset of the infamous Hoover criminal gangs. Now, if they're so infamous, and the people in LA, like the mayor and the DA, why don't they go after them? So one of the things that I wanted to bring out about this case, and I may end up taking 2 podcasts to cover all this, okay? And if that happens, we will break it up and do them together. But one of the things I really want to share with you is that about a few months back, close to a year maybe now, but about a few months back, Los Angeles got a new chief of police. I happen to know him. I've known him for a very long time. I've known him since he was the chief of police of Long Beach, and then he became the sheriff of Los Angeles, but then he didn't get reelected. They were having that big turnover kind of thing going on, a lot of politics, a lot of money. And then we got a new mayor, Mayor Bass, and I worked with Chief McDonald. He, at that time, when he didn't get reelected, he held a position over at USC at the Safe Communities Institute, where I'm an instructor, and excellent individual. And he, this last year, announced that he had been selected to be the new chief of police in Los Angeles. And I thought, I wonder how that's going to work with Mayor Bass, because I'm not going to pass judgment here. You can pass your own, but you can see her on TV all the time. And she has been the mayor for quite a long time in LA, knowing that Figueroa Corridor has existed and continues to exist under her watch. Now, apparently everybody just wants to look the other way and say, oh, these girls are out there because they want to be, and it's just so much fun and like that. This is bunk, okay? About 2 years ago, California, it was sponsored by Senator Scott Wiener, and it was signed by Governor Newsom. And if I sound a little political, I try not to be. I try to walk both sides of the fence. We are not a political nonprofit. We are a public benefit. But I will tell you the truth of what happened on Capitol Hill. Even though me and kids fought at it, and many of you people listening may have donated so that we could put a lot of money behind it, we were against SB 357. SB 357 says that law enforcement can no longer intervene in street prostitution in California. And I could not believe this, because you're assuming that those people are out there and that they're perfectly happy and that they can quit anytime they want to. Anybody who believes that is an idiot. Okay, I'll just put it that way, and excuse me if I'm rude, but it isn't true. So once SB 357 passed a couple of years ago, the inevitable happened. All across the nation, people brought girls to sell. Now, occasionally it's guys and a whole lot of LGBTQ, but it's mostly females and young females that you see walking up and down the street since SB 357 passed. And since we saw that, we saw a massive increase in the amount of activity on Figueroa Corridor. One of my friends that works over there said that she went out in the middle of the day and she counted more than 50 women street walking in a 2-block area of Figueroa Corridor. Now, how a mayor or anybody else over there can drive up and down that street and think that's okay, I don't know. But they continue to pass laws in California that make it very difficult to prosecute human trafficking or sex trafficking. They have these bills that say if you're 16 and under, then, finally, just this year, if you're 16 and under and you are in and being sold for sex, that it'll be, and if you're buying sex from someone who's 16 and under, it can be a felony. Really? Seriously? But then there was this big fight about, well, what if they're 16 and 17? Maybe they're there willingly, or maybe that's a boyfriend or whatever. And only recently have they come to terms with, under some conditions, if you have sex with a 16 or 17-year-old, will it be considered a felony? This state is really friendly to pimping and prostitution, and especially enforced prostitution. So I'm going to go on because I have looked at page after page of articles on this. I can tell you right now, it's probably going to be a 2-part series, so bear with me, but I want you to understand what is going on. So for the last 10 years, we have all watched as Figueroa Corridor was a blazing heaven for gangs and pimps forcing women into selling their bodies and enduring huge amounts of humiliation without anybody taking it on, okay? And it was absolutely ran by gangs. There is no doubt about it. Okay, some organization I've never heard of had an article. I've read probably 20 articles on this that I'm going to be quoting from because I want to make sure I don't get a political angle going one way or the other. And I want to make sure we have the facts, not something that's embellished. And it says the Hoover Gang's reign of terror, marked by violence, psychological manipulation, and financial greed, was finally halted by law enforcement, now empowered to act decisively in defense of law and order. So whoever's writing Watchdog News Group, thank you for being concise and precise. So they're not kidding. I don't know if it's a male or female. I should have got the author's name on that. What they're laying the groundwork for and why this is so important for you is this: that only now is there a federal group willing to overrule and override these ridiculous state laws and go in and take down this horrific operation. The heads of LA leadership, of California leadership, have looked the other way for literally years at this going on. And finally, what happened is that the feds worked with the local chief of police, who I greatly admire, and they formed a unit to take down the gangs that were controlling this. And it has not happened before. We're going to read here somewhere along the line that this is the first RICO case out of LA in history for commercial sex, and not just commercial sex, but sex trafficking, and especially in one of these cases, sex trafficking of a minor. Okay, I'm going to go on and keep quoting this Watchdog news group. Victims were not chosen at random. The gang preyed on those most exposed by societal breakdown and government neglect. Children from foster care. We've been saying this for years. 60% of victims that go into commercial sex, that are victims of sex trafficking, come from foster care. It is a grooming process in many ways. So the government neglect children from foster care, runaways, and those without family support. So they're saying these gangs did not pit their victims randomly, and quite frankly, I'm going to tell you, they never do. The most vulnerable are foster, homeless, runaway, and pregnant kids. Now you say to me, I want to get in and combat sex trafficking. I hear this all the time. I want you to. Okay, come with us, help us, fund us, do what you can, and do what you can in your community to help foster, homeless, runaway, and pregnant kids, because they are the most vulnerable kids. In our case, one of the things that we do, we train a lot of group homes, we train with a lot of foster kids, but we also do things like foster kids services, where we do collections from you all, and we have a bedding drive every January, so that as soon as you go in the foster system, you get a whole new set of bedding, and it's yours. And it's not white bedding that's boring, okay? It's got Superman on it. It's got, I don't know, Princess somebody other on it. It's got dinosaurs and things that kids will enjoy. We want them to know that they're special. When I train in schools and I train for foster kids and homeless kids, and why there are homeless kids in California with all of our wealth, I don't know. But we talk about, let's give them something to lose. Let's tell them that we believe in them. The way you keep a foster kid from being a victim is you use the 4 most powerful words on earth. I believe in you. Raise some money, and let that kid get a dance outfit or maybe a soccer outfit. Do you know foster kids are moved from place to place and they don't have enough money that they get to be like other kids? I say, especially for schools that are working with these, and agencies that are working with foster kids, help them get an identity. Who am I? One of the reasons kids are so vulnerable at that age is they're playing around online and they don't know who they are. Help them establish a sense of values and a sense of their own worth and a sense of identity, and let them know that self-esteem is not in the DNA and you didn't get any. It is a decision you get to make. Even if you're in the foster system, that means you're still valuable. And those are how it works. This gang literally used their gang guys to use social media across the United States. These are not all people coming from LA. They seduced him, one little 14-year-old girl that somehow left her home. I believe it was in timeout, I got a phone call. I believe it was in Iowa or Ohio. And she got on a bus coming out to California, believing that she was going to get all kinds of luxuries and like that. And another girl came from Texas. So they used their gang guys to recruit. Now, one of the things I want to make really clear about this case is this case was ran by a woman. A gang woman. I'm going to come to her, Armstead, I think her name is. Yep. Armstead. She used the term Lady Duck. In fact, she had that tattooed right on most of the girls' arms so that they were branded. Do you know what that means to a girl who's 14, 15, 16 years old, and you have your pimp's name tattooed on your arm, whether it's a female pimp or a male pimp? It tells you that you are branded, that you belong to them, and that you can't ever get out. This whole operation was run by a girl by the name of Armstead. Those are called bottoms. Now, I'm not going to tell you what they're really called out on the street because I don't use words like that. But it's a bottom. And about 60% of the cases, there is an involvement of a bottom girl. Armstead was absolutely vicious. If they were able to get her, she may face life in prison, and I agree she should. So the victims were not chosen randomly. The gang preyed, and again, I'm talking from Watchdog News Group. The victims were not chosen randomly. The gang preyed on those most exposed by societal breakdown and government neglect, foster kids run away, and those without family support. They use social media, and this is so important that we train our kids to understand exactly how this works. They get them to have this fantasy. They fall in love with the tattoos online. They think this guy's going to rescue them. These are kids who have big needs. They may not have a home life. They may not have much going for them. They may have a family that's abusing them. They may just be very, very poor. And this guy or girl will come on social media and they will flash everything in front of them. You can have all of this. I'm going to take care of you. And that's exactly how it happens. You know, teach our kids, do not let somebody take care of you. The minute you take care, or somebody's taking care of you, it is going to be the highest price of your life. Believe me. So these members met these girls online. They promised them a life of luxury and belonging, inclusion. So many of these kids just want to be wanted, just want to be included. And so these kids, whether they're already in California or coming from a bus across the nation, come into California thinking this guy is going to marry them, take care of them. They're going to have everything they don't have in Ohio or Texas or Nevada or wherever they're coming from. And believe me, with SB 357, these pimps now are recruiting all across the nation. You see, this is, as we will see as we get through these cases, you will see this is all about using girls for money laundering. These gangs are organized, and they are, they are what you call, in fact, they're being charged with RICO, racketeering kind of things. It is about using a girl 6, 7, 8, 15, 20 times a night, and she doesn't get any of that money. Now, I know I'm getting gross, but you need to know the truth if you're listening to this particular segment. I warned you it'd be tough to hear. It is. People want me to come out and speak on human trafficking, but, it's a luncheon thing, so could we keep it light? Well, there's nothing light about human trafficking. They are bringing in these girls and using them until one day they're gone, either used up by drugs or used up by too much sex. And, it's a horrific life. These young girls, they get STDs, hepatitis, drug-related diseases. They have horrible abortions. They do not get a choice on who's going to come in as their customer. And they do not get a choice of the kinds of things they are going to be forced to do. And without getting too blunt with you, I'm going to tell you that when these people are buying sex, they want what they want. And it isn't like Pretty Woman. I saw that movie. She was very good in that movie, but that's a bunch of BS, okay? Let's keep it clean here. It isn't like that. In the real world, when these people are buying a person from a gang member, which is obvious because of the environment, they're going to do what they're going to do. And at the end of the day, this girl has to make so much money or she won't get to eat, or she won't get to sleep. And many times they are absolutely brutalized, beaten, raped. I had a case out here where they were raped with a gun barrel. I mean, how do you deal with that psychologically? And at the end of the day, they take all the money. And this is about using people for money laundering. This did not start last week or last month or even last year. This has been going on Figueroa Corridor for as long as I've been in this business. As literally on Sacramento, they turn a blind eye. These people are there because they want to be. The mayor turns a blind eye. In the past, even the DAs have turned a blind eye, but we have an administration who says we're coming in and we're going to prosecute this federally. Not on our watch are gangs going to be allowed to use 14-year-old girls over and over and over to make money for literally cartels. And everybody sees it and everybody walks away until this bust. And I'm very, very proud. So going on with this, I'm going to make this into 3 stories before it's over because we got a long ways to go. But I want you to see why this is so important. We cannot continue to live as if this is not happening. It is happening on the street in front of our very eyes. As you walk down or drive down Figueroa, you go, oh my hell, look at that. And everybody just goes by it every day until this administration and this Department of Justice and this IRS, yes, IRS is involved because it's money laundering, and this FBI formed a group and worked with the local sheriff, got that wrong, the local now chief of police, Jim McDonnell, and working together took it down and rescued these girls. So they use social media, they use gang guys, and we need to understand how that works so we can prepare our girls to understand and not fall prey. They use gang guys that promise luxury and inclusion or belonging only to trap them in cycles of addiction and abuse. They branded them, as I just said, they tattooed them with their names and said, you no longer are free to go. You belong to us. And they used threats of physical violence. They demonstrated their total disregard for human dignity. Years of open border policies, you see, SB 357 was passed at the same time that we had maximum homelessness. A homeless girl is a raped girl. At the same time, we had open borders, and they passed this bill that says that law enforcement cannot intervene in street prostitution. If you're luring to solicit for street prostitution, doesn't say if you're soliciting to buy or sell, law enforcement can't intervene. All of this happened together. Me and kids, we fought long and hard. I'm still pissed about it, can you tell? But this is ridiculous for a society, a sophisticated society with supposedly qualified leadership to allow this to go on year in and year out and say, well, it's not real, it's not happening, the mayor is lying, and besides, she wants to be there. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to finish this article, and then I'm going to come back and we'll start the next podcast. And so it will be at least 2 series. It may end up being 3 before it's over. Okay, they promised him luxury, and then when they got there, it was just the opposite. They branded them with gang tattoos. They controlled them using threats and physical violence, the kind of physical violence we will get into in the next section. The gang demonstrated total disregard for human dignity in this case. So what happened here is that this soft on crime leadership, now this is not my words, this is the words of Watchdog News Group, but you notice I thought you ought to hear it. This environment where criminal gangs can recruit, they can move, they can exploit victims with little risk of prosecution or deportation. That's implying, that's their words, not mine, implying that some of these gang members are not from the U.S. I don't know that. I'm reading this article. So in April 2024, Armstead and Evans utilized rooms at the Stadium Inn. Armstead is the female that I'm talking about, the female pimp, the bottom. They used Stadium Inn at South Los Angeles Motel to traffic their victims. One victim included a 14-year-old girl. Armstead gave the victim, who was sex trafficked for at least 3 consecutive days, condoms to use for commercial sex dates with Johns or sex buyers. Now, I'm running out of time on this podcast. I'm going to go into it on the next podcast. But here's what I'm telling you. It wasn't until the feds decided enough of this that it actually stopped. And somebody intervened. And I am very, very thrilled that the feds are involved. They finally have gone in to rescue these girls, and they are going to take this into a federal court where you can get some real sentences. One of the things I'll read in the next section here is a Department of Justice person saying they have to prosecute out of LA. Otherwise, nobody will get an appropriate sentence. Okay, if you know anybody who's being trafficked or being recruited for trafficking, you can report it at 1-888-373-7888. 1-888-373-7888. My name is Opal Singleton. You can contact me at opal, O-P-A-L, at millionkids.org. I hope you'll support our work financially. We need it if we're going to continue to do this. And I hope you'll stay with us and hear the next section of this series. Stay with us. I couldn't answer. I was in the